Trey Lotz is a field auditor who delivers L. Ron Hubbard's technology separate from the Scientology Church. He's been doing it for 55 years in the Los Angeles area. Anyway, we've done 2 previous videos with him where he explains what Scientology auditing is and how it works, and then also what the difference is between security checks and Scientology auditing. In this video, we're going to talk to him about his field auditing practice and how he does it, and also what attacks have come his way from Scientology, the Office of Special Affairs, Religious Technology Center, and all that. Anyway, we think you'll enjoy his stories, and we hope you like this video. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our channel, Scientology Peeling the Onion. My name is Mark Fisher. I'm here with my co-host, Janice Gillum-Grady. How you doing today, Janice?
Good, Mark. Good day, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. We've got a good story for you today. We've had this person on before. Mark, you want to brief them all on that?
Yeah, that's right. We have Trey Lotz is coming back. We've done a couple of shows with him already before. The first one we did was, what is Scientology auditing? He is a practicing field auditor, and he has been field auditing for over 55 years in Los Angeles. So on this video that we did with him, we wanted him to explain to people who had never been involved in Scientology what Scientology auditing is and how it works. And then the second video that we did with him was the difference between sec checks, security checking, and auditing. And both of those videos are available on our channel for you to watch if you like, because there is a difference between security checking and auditing. And so we just wanted to say that that's how we started the shows with him. But it's been a while since we've had him. And go ahead, Janice, and we'll introduce you, and we'll start talking about what we're going to do.
Yeah, well, yeah, Trey, I first heard of him and met him when he came to the Apollo for internship as an auditor. And so we're going to talk about that, and then his time as a field auditor and what he's gone through building up his practice. So let's bring on Trey Lotz.
Welcome, Trey.
Hey, Trey.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Glad to have you. Hey, Trey, we were just talking, and I first met you on the Apollo when you showed up. You'd already done your auditor training, the theory, but then you came to the ship to do an internship. And I remember all those interns were all being CS'd by Hubbard, or Hubbard was listening to their tapes of their sessions and that type of thing. Was that something you were doing?
Yeah, I don't know if he was CSing everything. He was certainly aware of the internship line. Brian Livingston was the intern soup, and I think David Mayo was CSing. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was Brian Livingston. I wasn't really sure about that.
I know Brian, as one of the top auditors, was the internship supervisors, and David Mayo was the senior CS. And then any cases that David had trouble with or that Hubbard had his attention on, those were all sent up to Hubbard at the end of the day for him to review.
Yeah. So it was a small ship. Everybody knew what was going on with everybody.
And then Trey, can you let people know what is a Scientology? What is an internship? It's you've already done the course and the training, right? But then you go and do an internship, and what does that involve?
Well, when I first did my training, I did my academy levels back in 1969, and there wasn't too much to it at the time. And you would just do the academy levels, and you do a few sessions, and they'd let you go. Now, I knew that having even done the course, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was completely lost. I had no practice and no experience. So I saw this little sign on the bulletin board saying auditors wanted in Hawaii for $25 a week. And I thought, well, I could go there and get some practice. So that's what I did. And then I came to LA, did the Dianetics course, did the Class 6 course. I did the Class 8 course. And as part of the Class 8 course, we did do an internship, which is about 6 weeks of intense auditing every day, 6, 8, 10 hours a day. And it's all supervised. And when you finally passed, you were graduated permanent Class 8. But I hadn't done my Dianetics or Class 6 internships. So when that became available on the ship, I thought, well, what better place to do it would be on the ship under, LRH's top auditors. So I went there to learn how to do it well. Well, I did my academies in New York City.
Okay.
At the Marquette Hotel, and then I did. Then I came out to LA, and I did the rest of it out here. Briefing course.
Yeah, and what I remember though about the internship too was it was to make a flubless auditor, right? We called it a flubless, right? Yeah. In other words, flubless TRs, training routines, and flubless auditing. Is that right, Trey? So in other words, very experienced at what you were doing when you're auditing somebody, right?
Yeah, it was very challenging because you ended up doing, I was doing like 60 hours a week for several weeks in a row. And you had to have a bunch of sessions with no mistakes. And then, you're finally graduated. And believe me, it was a challenge because, there was about 300 Sea Org people on the ship. And the ship was about 300 feet long. So you could imagine that it's very crowded and people were sleeping on top of bunk beds just against the wall and stuff like that, or rolling up their mattresses on the deck, and sleeping there all night. And, to find people that could actually be audited that were sessionable, it was like a real challenge. And so you had to hunt them down, between sessions. You had to go, hey, you.
Right.
Janice, isn't that how you got your auditing was from like people like Trey, saying, hey, we need to audit, we need a PC, right?
Right. Yes, that's how the crew got audited. But yeah. Trey, I was going to ask you, most of your auditing since it was internship of the grade, was it the academy level? So you were auditing people on their grades, or were you doing other?
Well, the first one was Dianetics, so it was just all Dianetics. And then there was grade auditing and that kind of
right.
low level.
Yeah.
Auditing.
Yeah, that's Mark. That is how most of the crew got up the bridge. It wasn't a big thing on sec checks all the time like it was later on in the years. And the whole idea was if there's out tech, then you get out ethics. So you better find out what the out tech is, that caused the person to go out ethics. So Hubbard was all over that, and the interns had to be flubless on their auditing. And so the crew managed to get up the bridge. A lot of them would go to the interns and say, hey, I want to get up the bridge. And someone like Trey would have a PC.
I was just thinking about this, Janice. It's almost like that was a change when you guys were land-based in Clearwater, because then the interns and the internship, they would audit actually public persons. Am I right? I mean, in other words, they didn't have enough auditors, so they would have the interns actually audit paying public people. And so the staff were kind of like the secondary, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, I think you're right, because on the ship, the paying public, they were paying for the class 12s.
Right.
And all the other auditors had to find crew members to audit. And then when we moved ashore, and they also did, we had the OEC, FEBC students. So that would be the org executive course and the flag executive briefing course. Those students, they all came from outer orgs, and part of their executive training was also to get audited, get through the grades and basic Scientology auditing, so they knew what they were supposed to be delivering in their orgs.
Right, and the reason I bring this up is like at the Gold Base in Hemet, Gilman Hot Springs, we didn't have interns. We didn't have internships. I mean, we had a qualifications division, and they had staff auditors and that type of thing. But we've heard stories like after you and I were gone, where the staff weren't getting audited at all. You know what I mean? Whereas we were lucky. I worked for Miscavige, so I already was clear by the time I went to the base anyway, and I did my OT levels and stuff. But then my audited knots I did at the base, and that was because I was an executive. You know what I mean?
Right.
But just a run-of-the-mill crew member at Gold, they would be lucky if they got into session because there just wasn't that many auditors. Whereas on the ship, you had an abundance of staff that, like he said, it was hard to find them sessional, but you had people that you could pick and managed to get auditing.
Right. And also when we did move ashore, we had people still like Trey coming into Flag to do internships.
Absolutely.
And they weren't supposed to be auditing public. They were supposed to do their internship on the staff. So they didn't go in green weenies and mess up the paying public. They need to practice and become flawless.
But then when the knots boom happened and then where Flag was flooded with public, then it was like, okay, well, we're going to use the interns and have them supervised, I think, you know what I mean? And so they would actually audit like some of the setups and things like that for the people that were going to go on their upper levels. So the staff didn't get as much auditing as they did on the ship,
Right.
Anyway, it's just an observation I'm making. I was just thinking about that because, a lot of these crew members after we left, they never got any auditing. Like we said, they only got sec checks. They never did any Scientology,
Or if they did go up the bridge, it was pretty much through a co-audit where they audited each other. Right.
Anyway, I just wanted to interject. I just had that thought, Trey, when you were mentioning that, putting people there. What did you think of the ship when you were there? Where was it? Were you in the Mediterranean or was it in the Caribbean or where was it?
Mostly Curacao, Trinidad. We touched on a few other places, but it was almost entirely at Curacao. And I had my own room, which was, it was a very small room, it was a bunk bed, and you had to audit in your own room. And the thing is, you could sit on the bottom bunk bed, but the top bunk bed was down so low. I ended up auditing like this because the was right here like this. So I had to get in there. I had to sit in the bunk bed, put this little folding tray over my legs, which was the end of moving my legs for the next couple hours. And then somebody squeezed into the room, closed the door, and we set up the meter. And I'm auditing like this.
You must have been in B deck aft. At the back of the ship.
And it was like 120 degrees. We were in the internship room. We were right under the there was a
deck.
Where the Apollo troop practiced.
Yes.
Right above us. So we were down there doing our TRs in the morning, and sweat's pouring off our face. And we had this little fan in the room about this big, and it would go like this, like every 5 minutes you'd get a little like that.
Well, let me explain. We had the aft well deck, and that's where the troop was, and that's where the sea sleds were normally stored, and it was the opening to the hold number 3. So if you open the hatch on the well deck, down the next level was the tween decks, and that is where the internship was. They were sitting on the hold number 3, lower hold number 3 cover, and doing their TRs and training and so forth there. And they had canvas around that hold to kind of make it a room. And then if you go down the stairs to the next level, that's where CIC was, the Central Intelligence Center. But
Control Information Center. Control Information Center is what CIC stood for.
Anyway, and down there was where we had file cabinets with all the data files on every org and a map of the world, which someone drew. And that's where I learned my geography, was on that map. And there was a big table where Hubbard used to meet with the aides on Thursday night and go over different stats and issue orders and so forth. But so right in between the well deck and the hold number 3 was the tween decks, and that's where Trey would have been doing his internship unless he was ready to take the person into session.
Right. Yeah. So it was my connection with LRH at that time. I was auditing a couple of his communicators, and this one particular girl who was British. I think she was about 13. And I swear to God, for the life of me, I couldn't understand a word of what she was saying. I know she was speaking what she believed to be English, but boy, it through it all. And but I was
Is she a messenger?
Yeah, she was a messenger. Yeah, cute blonde girl, about 13.
Rachel.
Yeah, probably that makes sense.
Rachel Hall. Yeah.
Yes.
So I was auditing her on her self-analysis. I just give the command and she'd give an answer. I knew it was an answer, but I didn't know what she said. But anyway, so after a few sessions, I got this communication back from Hubbard. He said, good job. He says, she's lost her druggy look.
Yeah. Yeah. Hubbard kept saying that she was a druggie, but she'd never had any drugs this lifetime. And so he kept having her audited on the drug rundown, but there was no drugs to audit out. She'd never done it. So then it was like, well, her mother must have been taking drugs while she was pregnant with her, or it was the last lifetime drugs. Anyway, I'm glad it got resolved with you.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. The other time I met Hubbard, well, when I was on the ship was in 75, and when I was on the ship, they announced that the ship was moving to a land base in Daytona Beach. So this was all top secret, and everybody was excited. And so we ended up on a bus and landing and going to Daytona Beach and setting up there. And what management wanted us to do, wanted us to be up running on the beach at least for an hour a day to pretend we were like tourists. Well, we liked that because we liked, otherwise we were like in session like 10 hours a day. So we did that. And during one of these times, I was in the courtyard and I saw Hubbard's limousine drive up and the driver get out, and then he got out of the back seat. And it was a very interesting experience because I could look at him from a couple 100 feet away and think, just looks like an old man, getting out of a car, walking. Nothing special. Could have been any old man, And so then later on, I went into session. I was auditing somebody, and I finished, and I came out of the room, and I started to go down to the auditor's room. I was walking along the catwalk, and around the corner came LRH and 2 of his aides, and they were walking right towards me like this, Well, it was like my first reaction was like a flinch, but it's too late to turn around then. So I just walked forward and I looked at him, and he looked me in the eye and he said, "Hi." And I had the most amazing experience for that 1 second that he made contact with me. I could see into his universe, and his universe, I'd never experienced anything like that because I observed a lot of people over the years and their universes, and they had all kinds of different qualities. I never ran across anybody with a universe that had that quality. It was so deep and so vast, and yet it was not dead. It was vital, yet there was nothing in it except vitality. And it just stunned me for that second. And then he took his attention off me, and he was just another old guy walking past me. It was a really amazing experience. It really was.
Yeah. Well, that was when he would go over. He was staying at the condos, maybe two doors down. Mm-hmm. And he was like up way up, and then come down the elevator, get in the car, and drive a long way around to come in, so people didn't know where he was. And he would go over there and do the lectures on, I think it was Dianetics or expanded Dianetics that he was doing at that time.
There was new vitality rundown.
Oh, the new vitality rundown. That's right. Yes. Yeah. And we had a lot of students coming in to train on that.
Yeah.
And, yep. But, and then he started doing shoots on the beach and trying to do send out the world tours in order to try and get public coming in preparation to moving over to Clearwater to the Fort Harrison. And he had the world tour going out and sending in FCCIs and outer org students for training.
Right. That was quite a time.
Yeah.
So then you started your. Go ahead, Janice.
Trey, you were a field auditor at that time when you came back to the ship?
Yeah, I've always been a field auditor. I never was org staff, even though I volunteered at the Celebrity Center, ASHO, AO. I audited a lot of their PCs, but I never was on staff.
Right.
Now you've been auditing for 55 years, and of course you're still auditing to this day at your house. Do you deliver the entire, like, what do you deliver for people that, you know?
Well, now I deliver in the entire audited bridge. I was trained on a lot of upper level stuff, but as a field auditor, you couldn't really audit it, anything above clear. But since I've been independent, I get a lot of people that have done all the way up through OT8. Many people have done through NOTS or OT3, and I just pick them up. I do their OT4, 5, OT8. I pick up people that did their OT8 on the ship, which was only they only partially did it. And then I just do the other steps that weren't done as part of it on the ship. Other rundowns, I do certainty rundown, havingness rundown. These are some old rundowns that haven't been run in a long time, but they're from 880-08, and they really are very powerful rundowns, particularly with people who had a lot of auditing.
Right. Now I have a question. When NOTS came out, that replaced the old OT4, 5, 6, and 7.
Well, not OT4. They made a drug rundown, a NOTS drug rundown instead of an OT3 drug rundown.
Right.
But it was the same.
Okay. But those old OT levels, you still deliver those. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. Well, my group, Randy, SCS several people on the original OT levels. I do original OT7 because that's mostly audited, and most original OT 5 and 6 are mostly done solo or entirely done solo, really.
Right.
So Randy CS's people on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about do you deliver the L's too? L10, 11, and 12?
Yeah, I got trained on how to deliver the L's in the original version that LRH delivered in early 1970s, with no later RTC revisions. So
that's the big problem. That's the big problem with all the revisions, because Hubbard is gone, so it's just Miscavige and RTC changing things. You know what I mean? So anybody that believes in the L. Ron Hubbard technology, I mean, you have no trust in the stuff that's coming out from RTC and Miscavige these days.
Oh yeah, don't get me started.
Go ahead, get started. Let's hear it.
Well, for example, there was the one point that you mentioned I thought was a very key important point. It's only mentioned on the Class 8 course. Is right before there's out ethics, there's out tech. And so I always incorporated that. If I did an ethics handling on somebody, like somebody gone out 2D or something like that, I get when it first started, and then I asked, and then once we resolved that, I asked, well, what was the influence, was suppressive influence that occurred before that? Where did you get those ideas? And that really blows the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Oh, good.
that's never done in the church. They don't do that. They just kind of bore down on you. Go, who are you, PTS to? Stupid.
Yeah, well, very militant these days, from
Yeah,
what I
that's a
hear.
good word. Militant was what I was thinking, the same thing.
Well, plus they don't do it on the meter, so they just intimidate people into saying something, and then they force a handle, and it isn't really the right person or the right handle, but it just doesn't work.
Right. And you end up with wrong items and out lists.
So true.
So,
Yeah.
so Trey, how do you get your PCs over the years? How did you build your practice as a field auditor?
Well, I when I first started, I had one PC to audit, and then I had two PCs because I just talked to people and they said, "Oh, you're auditing, so can you audit my friend or can you audit me?" So I had two PCs. And
PCs are pre-clears for our audience. Pre-clears means just somebody who's not clear. Anyway, they abbreviate it to PC. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So then I thought, well, I really like doing this, and maybe I'll do it, because like I said, nobody was doing it. I was the only one doing it in LA, and I had no idea how to do it. There was no hat to do it. I was, well, geez, I don't know if I'll ever. What about when I finish these guys? What's going to happen? But then somebody else came along, and then somebody else came along, and I always had this constant worry about how am I going to continue this, because at the time there were only maybe 200 Scientologists in the entire LA area, and they were all on org lines, and you couldn't audit somebody on org lines. So what was I going to do? About 6 or 7 years into it, I looked back and I saw the fact that I had never had a slow week. I'd never had a schedule that wasn't full. And right around that time, I listened to an LRH tape on the auditing series where he says that the auditor that has PCs is not necessarily the good auditor. I said, well, that's a relief. He says it's the auditor that's willing to audit. And I said, yeah, I'm willing to audit, And what I realized is, as long as you can sit down in a table and have an empty chair in front of you, somebody will show up to get auditing, because there's many, many more people that would like to get auditing than there are people that can audit. And that's never going to be any different. And even if I don't know where the next person is going to come from, somebody will show up. And in truth, in 55 years, I really never had a slow week. I mean,
right.
Never.
Now, you still audit. You still audit from the bottom of the bridge all the way up to the top. So you have a mix of PCs every day doing different levels.
Yeah, that's what makes it very interesting. It's not just the same thing all over all the time.
Well, the other thing I was going to say, just to back up what you were just saying, Trey, is that, an auditor who's willing to audit, because for people who've never had Scientology auditing, what the auditor is doing is they're sitting there and listening to the person tell them all sorts of stuff. You just sit there silently listening and acknowledging what they're saying. So, and that can go on for hours and hours and hours. And if you're listening to hundreds of people doing that, you know what I mean? It takes some confront. You've got to be able to confront and be able to have a good ear and being able to acknowledge and be caring about what it is that you're listening to, right?
Oh, they're essential, yeah. And it takes a certain amount of mental stamina too.
Yeah.
You're apparently you're not doing anything. You're just sitting there, conducting the session. But it takes a lot of mental energy, actually.
Yeah, because it's all intake, and all you're doing is asking a few questions and directing them,
and then writing down what's going on. Yeah.
Process what's being said and put it into some sort of the biggest thing, really, I think, is when you listen to people saying about what's going on, is picking out of everything that they're saying the one thing that really would be important to pull the string on. Right.
To get them to have big cognition.
If they're having a problem with their kid or whatever, they may go blah, 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 blah. But then you're looking for that one thing that really is going to crack that, right? In other words,
Yeah.
take care of it.
What's
Yeah.
the key thing to
Yeah.
work on? Yeah.
Let me ask you, Trey, from a practical point of view of a field auditor, particularly when you first started out. I mean, auditors generally will have somebody who actually will review their folder and write a new CS or case directive for the next session, and also an examiner who would, check to make sure that the PC was happy and in good indicators and all that. Obviously, when you're on your own, do you just do that yourself? Is that how that worked?
Oh no, I had 40 years. I had case supervision. There were field case supervisors, some very, very good ones. Steve Miller, for example, he CS'd me for 25 years, I think. After I left the church and I started auditing the L's and things, there really wasn't anybody who could CS it. There was no L's CSs that were available to, and by that time for the last 10 years of being CS'd every session, I was pretty much self-correcting anyway. If I made a mistake, I knew it and I corrected it. And at that point, I could take over the hat myself, and I just CS my own auditing. It works out fine. I don't.
Right. Now, go ahead, Mark.
Okay. How about correction lists and things like that? Do you just Xerox them or print them off? Because I mean, there's a whole bunch of correction lists and stuff that you got to use.
Oh yeah, I have all the materials, and you can always print them off the, because I have a copier, you just make copies and stuff.
Yeah. Go ahead, Janice.
Now, I had a question in regards to in the early 80s, when the mission holders were being taken down. You would have been auditing in the field. Did that affect you with the finance police coming in to the missions? Did they also come into you as a field auditor?
No, but I did get booted out at that time, along with, it was quite an interesting story. I just got, I found out one day that I gotten declared along with a bunch of other field auditors.
Oh.
And, so that's interesting. And I asked for a board of review. I went through the standard things. And the funniest thing happened after about a year, and I was out for about a year. The church itself reached out to me and said, "We're going to do a board of review on you." And I said, "Okay, great." So then I did that. And I asked the people, they were very nice, very friendly. I really appreciated it. I asked, "Well, what brought this about?" He said, "Well, we've gotten so many requests for refunds. We did a big survey on people who were asking for their money back. And two things came up. The main thing that came up was injustices. And when we pulled the string on that, there were two things that came up. You and Richard Stewart were cited as injustices. So we're remedying that." So they lifted the declare and let me.
You mean people thought you were treated unjustly? Is that
exactly? Out of all the people surveyed that were asking for their money back, they cited that situation as the biggest reason why they were leaving the church.
Right. So if you were declared for a year, did you audit people during that year?
No, I vegetated.
Okay.
I just took. What can I say? I know I didn't.
Let me ask you. Did you? Tony Hitchman was a field auditor in the LA area too, right? Is that?
Oh
true?
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine.
Yeah, Tony Hitchman, who did the LRH interview in South Africa years ago. Yeah, the Hitchman film, as it's known. He was a field auditor. And then how about Jim and Mimi Rogers? Because that's
I was just going to bring up Mimi.
Tom Cruise. That's how Tom Cruise got into Scientology, was through field auditors.
Yeah, through Jim Rogers. Yeah, or Mimi Rogers. Yeah, I remember her when I came to ASHO in the first place. She was like 16 years old, and she was a Class 8. And she was just the most gorgeous girl you ever want to meet, along with being really competent and smart.
My dad did the briefing course with her at Flag in Clearwater in 1978 or 79 or whatever. He did something with her in Clearwater, and all he could do was rave about how beautiful this girl was.
Yeah, I know.
Well, Mimi doesn't audit anymore. I don't think she's even an active Scientologist, but she's become a big actress now. She's had some big parts, and she's on that attorney show, Bosch.
Well, the Bosch, the cop show, on Amazon. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing she does, she's a gambler. She plays poker.
Poker. She's a professional poker.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. You can see her on TV in these poker tournaments. Yeah.
Yeah, she's reading. She's got her TRs in on the other players to figure out who's bluffing and who's not.
Their minds. They're at a disadvantage.
That's funny.
So, okay, so they undeclared you and let you audit again in the field, but wasn't there a time RTC or someone raided you or?
Oh yeah, well that was quite a bit later. So I recovered and then had another. Well, it was like another from 1983 to 2007. A couple of years earlier, it started to get bad again. You could always feel these storm clouds gathering. Where there was about to be some sort of thunder and lightning. It's going to strike us in the field, and you could kind of feel that happening. But a lot of times it starts to happen and it doesn't happen. But I had somebody on my lines who had a family member who was in the OSA, and this family member didn't want me auditing her family member, her brother actually.
Oh.
So she's just started making them a lot of trouble. So I said, I don't want that trouble. So I just turned the whole cycle over to ASHO. I turned the folders over and left it, but that wasn't enough. That she persisted, and again, along with a lot of other field auditors. By that time, there were very few left. In 1970, there was like 25, 30 field auditors. In 1987, there was maybe 4 or 5, and then there was a ComEv. And I knew I was doomed because I walked into the ComEv and they were all wearing T-shirts that said the Y is Trey.
Oh.
Oh boy!
Wow, never heard of that one.
So they were promoting some strange ideas like, well, you do more than 110 OG on a PC. You can't do that. I never saw that. Anyway, and then they said, "Oh, you do a trouble area questionnaire, and you're not a data series evaluator." I said, "Well, you don't have to be. It's not on the check sheet." No, we don't care,
Yeah.
So they asked me for a bunch of success stories, and I thought, well, geez, I says, "Is there going to be any benefit to that?" And she says, "Oh yeah, sure, we'll read them, So I went home and I got about 200 success stories that I'd had, and turned them in, and then nothing happened for a while. I said, well, maybe the whole thing blew over. This was like 4 or 5 months later, and I was auditing one Sunday night, and I heard people walking around in my living room. And I go, wow, who's that? Nobody's supposed to be here. So I took a break and I walked in there, and there's Richard Valley, and Ron Kleffler. Ron Kleffler was walking around. He was pacing around the living room and kind of hitting his fist with his fist. Hit his hand with his fist. And Richard Valley was there. He kind of looked pretty friendly, So they were there to declare me.
Were they Sea Org members, or who were they?
Oh yeah. They had just come in, and they were waiting for me to get out of session. So I came and I finished the session, walked back in there, and they said, well, we're here to declare you. And they showed me the declare. One of the most interesting things on the declare was these success stories that I had submitted. They said, well, we didn't have time to read all these success stories, but it's just more proof of Trey's squirreling.
Well, the people are having success?
Yeah, I said, well, that's strange, and then there was just a bunch of stuff in there. Most of it was untrue or way out of date, or who knows what it was. It was like this same woman that kind of engineered the whole thing later bragged that she'd engineered the whole thing from beginning to end, and she was quite proud of herself. Well, that was okay. So anyway, for a while I was thinking, you know what it was like? It was like back in the 1300s when I was a French peasant, and I had this plot of land that I farmed and I grew some livestock, and of course it was the king's land, but we were just you know peasant farmers. And the way it worked is the king would get 20% of our produce every year, and whatever eggs we produced or whatever, and then we would use the rest to feed our family. I had a wife and a couple kids, and we never saw the king, but we thought he was a good guy, and he would come around once a year. We hardly ever saw him. We hardly ever saw his people, but he had his um, men on horseback that would come around and collect once a year, twice a year. And other than that, they pretty much left us alone. The other thing about his men, his army, was they kept us safe because there were other neighborhood marauding troops and bandits that would come and try to steal everything, and they pretty much kept us safe. So that was our contract. He was a good king. We liked him. We didn't know him, but we thought he was a good guy, and he used what we gave him to sort of protect us. And we were good peasants. He was a good king, and that was our contract. And then the king died, and he was replaced with his nephew, and his nephew was a completely different kind of a person. He just got really greedy, and instead of seeing his army once or twice a year, he said, "No, we want 60% of your production, and you better watch it because we're going to be watching you." So he started taking everything we could grow. We had very little for ourselves, and amongst the peasants, I wasn't really particularly part of this, but some of the other guys got really burned, and they started, some sort of physical. Well, they started some rebellion, or some talk of rebellion, and so this kind of got out of hand. And then one day, the king's men came down, and they burned the field, burned our crops, killed a lot of our livestock, and rode away. And there I was sitting in the middle of my cornfield, and my first instinct was to pick up a rock and throw it at the castle. Well, the castle was a long ways away, so I picked up a rock and I did that, and then another rock, 2, 3 rocks, and then I realized, wow, all this is doing is making my arm sore. And besides, it's not solving my problem. My problem was, how do I survive? How do I feed my family?
Right.
And the second problem was, how do I get out from under the thumb of this guy? Well, I never solved that problem because we didn't own anything. You couldn't own anything as a peasant. So I just kind of made it go right, and tried to outcreate it, and tried to grow enough to feed my kids and let them grow up. And that was the end of that lifetime. And then this lifetime, they came and they handed me my declare, and then 3 other people came. They took all my folders that I had accumulated over the previous decades, and so then they waved goodbye and left. And I was sitting there in my auditing room, completely empty of folders, with a couple of paper clips on the ground. And my first instinct was to pick up a rock and throw it at the castle. But then I remembered that the only thing that accomplished was made my arm tired. And it didn't solve my problem either. How was I going to survive? What am I going to do, moving forward? And also, how am I going to get out from under the thumb of this guy? Well, this time I figured it out. I could get out from under the thumb of this guy Miscavige by leaving the church. And I could move forward by doing what I'd always done. And the defining moment for me was when I realized where my loyalty lied. My loyalty lay with the tech. My loyalty did not lay with the organization necessarily. I had been loyal more or less the whole time,
Yeah.
but that got broken, and I didn't need it anymore. And I didn't need organizational guidance anymore. To what extent I was getting organizational guidance, I knew I could do it on my own, and that's what I did. I just started auditing people, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've been doing it 17 years.
What year was that? What year was that?
2007.
Okay.
Well, this is way after iHelp was established.
Oh yeah, that was 1970.
Yeah, iHelp was 1970.
Oh well,
79.
No, that was
we had a field auditors group in 1970. iHelp was, I think, it was in the early 80s.
Like same time as Wise and
Wise and
SMI.
SMI. Yeah.
Yeah, it was like 1978, 79. But
Yeah.
so okay, that was 2007. So you obviously they'd taken your folder. So did those people have to then go to the Scientology organization, or did they come back knocking on your door going like, "Hey, Trey, we still want you"?
Well, they tried to recruit a bunch of guys. I don't think they were very successful. And I ended up over the next 6 months, about 14 people came back that I had audited previously, and just said, we just threw in the towel. We're not going to try to even pursue this anymore with the church, and we want you to audit me. So I did, and then there were so many people left the church, and then I just ended up with a lot of the old timers on my lines that I knew over the years, people that had still wanted to pursue the tech, but didn't really want to pursue any relationship with the church.
Right.
So it was really perfect for them.
Yeah. Yeah, I have friends who go to you for auditing.
Yeah.
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 People call me, how do I get a hold of Trey? I need a session. I give them your number.
I know, and thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Trey, let me ask you another field auditor, mechanism. When you were field auditing in the 70s, 80s, 90s, or whatever, you obviously charged for your services, right? Was the amount that you charged less than what the Scientology organizations were charging, or how did that work? You don't need to tell us exactly how much, but I would assume it's less.
There were two cardinal rules. One is you don't undercut the org. You had to charge the same amount for auditing that the org charged. And two, you can't audit anybody who'd been on org lines within 2 years. So those would be the two fatal rules to break. So that's what we did. You could do, now I did a lot of ethics handling, admin scales, probably 15,000 hours of ethics conditions, admin scales, debugs, trouble area questionnaires. You could charge what you needed to charge for that, because there was no org charge for that.
Right.
If they did it at all, everybody did it differently. So I charged $120 an hour for that, and I've never changed my price. I still charge $120 an hour, and I charge $120 an hour now for introductory auditing, like lower bridge, grades, Dianetics, and I charge $200 an hour for L's, knots, the upper level rundowns.
Yeah, and just so people know, that's extremely reasonable compared to what Scientology organization charges for these things.
Oh yeah, you can do L11 in $2,000 or less, usually less than $1,000. Cost you $35,000 to do it at Flag.
Yeah, and I remember in the 70s it was 10 grand. Now it's 30 something. Yeah, just to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So, how do people find you now? Do you have a website? Do people contact you through that, or obviously you get referrals from people like Janice and other friends and stuff? But do you?
Yeah, I have a website. It was treylotz.org. It's treylotz.com. But I'm also on. We have a Facebook group called the Indie Bridge, which is a group of pro LRH, pro tech Scientologists, and who try to encourage each other to get auditing, do the bridge, sharing our wins. We've gotten several people active auditing again, so make things more available, and so that I'm on Facebook, and that's easy to contact me there, email, um, just a lot of different ways. Usually it's word of mouth and a referral from somebody who knows me.
How about
Right.
I've heard sorry, Janice, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, are you part of the indie group? No, there's indie groups in different locations. Are you part of that, or you're on your own and you don't associate with them, or you do and you refer back and forth? And
Well, I work with Randy primarily. Randy is a case supervisor. He's also an auditor. And so let's say I finish somebody, they go.
Who's Randy? I don't know who Randy is.
Randy Smith.
Okay.
He used to be Celebrity Center's case supervisor.
Okay.
Yeah, he was the senior case supervisor at Pasadena. He was on staff at Pasadena for decades. Qual and senior CS. And he does remote CSing. So when somebody's on their knots on their solo knots, I turn them over to Randy, and Randy CSs them on their solo levels. OT1, 3.
That was going to be my next question, which is that I've heard, because we left in 1990. There's people, people need to be in your home when you audit, because I've heard that people audit over the internet. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I was skeptical of it at first, and primarily because the meters that they had, this is like going back 15, 20 years, were not very good. They were the meter action, the needle action was really jumpy, and there was a comm lag, and I used a standard meter, and I never had a problem with it. And so people started auditing over the internet, and I thought, I don't want to do that. But then I had several people that I knew very well started doing it and said, hey, it's really works fine with this Russian meter. It was a new meter, an online meter, and you could get the meter dial on your screen, and you get the person on Zoom just like this. So like if Mark was holding cans and I could see a meter face over here, then I could audit Mark and see the needle reads, and it really works great because.
Wait a minute, clarify something for me. Where are the cans plugged in that the PC is holding?
The can is in the meter. So the electronics of it is in the can. The meter is in the can. So you, as the pre-clear, buy the setup.
A meter?
You buy a meter, and it's in a can. And you just sit there, you plug the can into your laptop, and you get your side of it up. And then I connect into the meter, and I get the meter interface, and then I can audit, and I give commands, and I get instant reads, and I get FNs, and it works great.
So you're just seeing the screen, and then the pre-clear is not seeing the screen. You're just seeing the screen. They're holding onto the cans.
The pre-clear is not seeing the meter. The pre-clear
the dial. They're not seeing the dial. They're just seeing you.
No. Mm-mm.
They see you, and you get to see the pre-clear and the needle, the meter.
Yeah, it's just like a regular session. It's just
okay.
Okay.
I had heard
how that worked too.
I had heard that there was some remote auditing that was done with the meter projected onto the wall. The auditor could see the meter behind the pre-clear on the wall and what the needle was doing. Do you know about that?
Never heard of that.
Okay.
I don't see why you would want to do something like that, but anyway, who knows?
Yeah.
Have you tried it with this Russian meter or no?
Oh yeah, that's what I have. It's Mikhail Fedorov did a lot of work on this and came up with a very, very good. It's just I've gotten used to it. The only problem I ever have with it is sometimes the internet goes out.
I see.
Right.
But
Mikhail was who paid for me to go to Russia and do a whole seminar on my books. Very good guy.
He is, isn't he?
Yes.
So then, like for instance, if I wanted to get auditing from you, for instance, I would buy a meter from wherever Mikhail has his meter. Once I had that, then it would hook it up to my computer, and then away we would go.
Yeah, Randy is the American distributor of the meter. So you could talk to Randy. He could help you set it up.
Oh, that's okay. I just was wondering how that worked.
Yeah, it works really good. I prefer to have people come because I like having people
You
in
like the
the
interaction. Yeah.
It's but I mean, it's really since I've gotten used to it after the first couple of sessions, it's not really that much different than auditing somebody in person.
Yeah.
It's like you feel like you're in the same room with them.
That's very interesting. Well, let me ask you this, Ray. Where do you see, I mean, we're all getting older now, right? You know what I mean? And we're not going to be around forever. Where do you see L. Ron Hubbard's technology and auditing, independent auditing particularly, what's the future of it? What do you see?
Well, I plan to be around forever,
Well, you've proven it so far.
Yeah, so far, so good.
Yeah.
Well, I trained an auditor named Jerry Tunadol, a very bright guy. He's in his 20s. I'm training him on the L's so that next time around there will be. I mean, that's really the weak point in the independent field is people don't get. There's very few people getting trained and starting field practices. We're trying to activate some of the old people who were trained in the church who had experience auditing. But as far as new people, Ron's org is doing a lot of that. The Drawer Center is doing a lot of that in Israel.
Yeah, we talked to them. We had to do a show with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
also,
then Groff, she's training people. There's not many people doing it though.
Doesn't Helen Chang also have a group that does a lot of training?
Yes, I'm the auditor. I'm the upper level auditor for her group. I do all her people
Okay.
and their OT8, and she does train grad fives, and I think she's got a couple of people on the BC check sheets too.
Oh, okay, good.
These are for her. She's got an org in Taiwan that she and she's got an academy here in LA that anybody can go to. It's they speak English.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
yeah.
very
I know
well.
she has a lot of Asians there, but she does take English people.
Yeah.
I was going to comment for our viewers out there. The field auditing, independent auditing that's going on. This is different than David Miscavige and the Scientology organized church, like Trey was mentioning. I mean, I take it, Trey, that your people, your pre-clears that come to see you, they come to session, they have a good session, they go home and they live their lives, and then they come back and they do the same over again. They're not required to do donations for buildings or go to do amends projects or something because of some executive being upset with them or anything like that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, if somebody wants to do auditing, then I'll bend over backwards to try to make it happen. And if they don't want, I mean, people, when people kind of first get on my lines, they say, "Well, are you gonna harass me? Are you gonna be calling me every couple of days?" And I said, "Well, I wish I had time to do that."
Well, and that's the thing.
You're too busy auditing.
But that's the thing. This is the essence of Hubbard's technology. It was auditing. I mean, that's what it was about. You know what I mean? This huge organization and all that was to try and spread it. But, it became too big. Like, it's just like any organization. It became, started defeating its own purpose. And the purpose was just literally to have somebody like Trey sit across from somebody like me or Janice and let us, say what it is that's on our mind that's bothering us and come to solutions and new realizations so that we can live a happier life, right?
That's right. Well, that's what Scientology was like back in the 70s. I remember very well. It was the golden age, and people just could come and go. They could hang around Celebrity Center and they could enjoy other people, and there's no crush wedging going on or militancy.
Yeah, it wasn't mind control where you had to, I mean, basically, I mean, you had freedom of choice, but you could do your sessions and do your thing. You know what I mean? It was the organization that, the organization was really what was, creating that control over people. Anyway.
That's right. And that's a very important point because, Scientology is a bridge to total freedom. But freedom, LRH says freedom, the only freedom there is the freedom of choice, the power of choice. So if you're curtailing a person's freedom of choice, you're curtailing his freedom, no matter how you justify it. And so when you audit somebody, they're free to create their life the way they want to. I don't have any need or desire to further control what they do or how they live their life.
Right.
Just the hope is, if Scientology frees you up, it's only because Scientology believes that you're basically good. So the more you free somebody up, the better things are for everybody. So that's a trust factor. When if you believe that people were basically bad, then you'd have to keep tabs on them because you free them up, they're going to go out and create trouble. That's not true. That's not true if you believe people are basically good.
Exactly. Yeah. And the auditing is expected to make a person better.
Yeah.
And improve their own lives and the lives of people around them.
Yeah.
Hey, Trey, let go. Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
So, Trey, I was going to say, and it's very rewarding for the auditor, isn't it? Very rewarding for you, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, you share their wins. When people have wins, it's your win too. And people say things that I realize I have cognitions every day from just the things that people say and their insights into their own situations and go, oh, yeah, that's interesting. You never stop learning and you never stop getting better at auditing. I've found it endlessly rewarding.
Can you explain to me how there's these auditors who audited thousands and thousands and thousands of hours while they were in the Sea Org or on staff, and then here they are 20, 30 years later, I didn't believe a thing about it. And I'm like, really? You sat there and delivered thousands of hours? Were you lying to your PCs? Or how did they even have successful sessions if you now believe it's not of any value?
Well, I believe there's tremendous lack of integrity because what'll happen with an auditor who's being CS'd by somebody who doesn't really understand the situation and really isn't that good of a CS is they'll end up forcing you to do things are not right for the pre-clear. And so therefore you develop a cynical attitude towards it. And if you commit enough of those overts and you see that a lot of these things that you're made to do that you don't agree with and, that don't really get the PC anywhere, you start to think that, well, whatever this tech is, it doesn't work, because you can't, when I was a very important point, when I was in the internship under Brian Livingston, he was such a good influence on me. He did a cram on me one time, and I came and I said, well, I know I screwed up here because I did this and it just felt like the right thing to do in the session, but I don't know if there's any reference on doing that. And he says, well, no, that wasn't your mistake. He said, in fact, when you're a beginning auditor starting out and you just do what you want to do, you're bound to screw up. You shouldn't do that. But once you know the right way to do something, says if you're in session with somebody and you feel like something's the right thing to do, then that's what you should do, because that's the right thing to do because you're an experienced auditor and you know what you're doing and you have the best interests of the PC at heart. So as long as you stay on that middle path, you always know that you're on the PC's side and you're always wanting the PC to do well and to have wins, then you never get the feeling that you're ineffective or that you're not getting anywhere because other people are forcing you to really be out of valence as an auditor.
Yeah, it's the old statement from Hubbard: auditor plus PC is greater than the bank. The auditor plus the PC is greater than the bank. And then when you have like what you're talking about, Trey, when you have executive CSing or other people interjecting into what the person's case is and what needs to be handled, it can turn off a lot of people. I mean, I got almost a year of sec checking and I wasn't allowed to continue on the bridge, and it completely drove me out, and it was all because of, some out ethics executives who thought that they knew best,
Yeah, but don't get me started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're at an hour, so we're not going to start now.
Yeah.
We're not going to start now.
No, there's this whole thing about in music, where if you're a musical artist and you cover a song that was a hit, there's an old idea that you shouldn't really try to cover an old song that was a hit unless you think you could do it better. And I think that what I came to the conclusion when I went on my own is that I could do it the right way. I could do it better. And that's what I was going to do. And to that extent, I might be an example for others to do it the right way, which is the right way for them. And I feel happy about that. Okay. The one thing the church never did was they never asked, well, what is your successful action? How come you have all these PCs when we don't?
Yeah.
They never asked that question.
No.
Right.
Well, we've reached the end of the hour here, Trey, and this has been fascinating. Again, Janice, great stories, Trey. Right, Janice?
Yeah. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Trey.
I did too.
Me too. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, well, we're going to move on to the end of the show here, but we got to mention Janice's complete liquid multivitamins, peach flavored. It's a 1-month supply in the bottle. Just go down in the merchandise store, click on it. I use it every day. It's fantastic. You just 2 teaspoons, or I put it in a shot glass and shoot it down, and you've taken your vitamins for the entire day, and it doesn't taste, it tastes good. You keep it refrigerated, shake it up. But anyway, complete liquid multivitamins are in our merchandise store, as well as Janice's magnesium complex. It's got all the different kinds of magnesium in it, and all of that stuff is in there. And we've been getting orders, from our
we have.
We appreciate that. And if you've had success with it, please, write to Janice, send her an email, or make a comment in one of our videos that you're enjoying the product. But both the magnesium complex and the liquid vitamins are available right down there in our merchandise store. So click on that and you will not be sorry. Okay. If you liked our show, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification button, hit the like button. That really helps us get the videos out to other people. Any questions or comments about what we've talked about, go down in the comment section, and we look forward to hearing from you. And of course, you can always support us on our channel by buying us a coffee. There's a link in the description. You click on it and follow that direction. Any money that we get from that just goes into continuing us doing these shows and stuff, right? That's the show. Janice, have you got anything else, or Trey, that you'd like to say before we finish the show?
Trey?
No, I'm always happy to talk to anybody. If somebody wants to get in comm, if they have any questions, just contact me, and I'm happy to be in communication.
That's
great.
Fantastic. All right, everybody.
Thank you, Trey. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Until next time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.